back to TheChowTimePod. It's your host, Red. We got an Asian take on Passport Bros today. The Fung Bros did a video on Passport Bros. I didn't fully watch it, but let's see if their take is different from mine or how they view things since they're quite Asian themselves. So please like and subscribe down below. I'd really appreciate that. And let's get to that chow. It's chow time.
Passport Bros, men who are moving overseas in pursuit of love. Now, why is this an issue? And why is it so trendy right now?
Yeah, we got to talk about it because a bunch of people messaged us and were like, hey, Fung Bros, when are you going to talk about Passport Bros? So I had to look it up and I had to understand that basically there was a group of guys who moved from America to Latin America in search of love, in search of building a better family, women with more traditional values. And
it's funny how when men look up the definition, it's totally different than when women look up the definition or do their research. So just funny.
They started a bunch of TikTok and YouTube accounts based around this concept. Since then, the concept has become so popular that Passport Bros was not just for that group of guys, but almost just like an all-encompassing terms for just a movement that some American men are buying into.
Basically, it's not a new thing, but the branding is new. Now there's an actual name for it.
Yeah, I know growing up, Andrew, people at our church or people in the Asian community have always been going back to Asia, whether it was their motherland country or like a country nearby to find a wife. But I guess like that was viewed differently, right? Because
that is definitely Passport Bros, but it was viewed differently because now Passport Bros, they want to live in another country. They want a different life. They want a nicer lifestyle. They don't want to have to worry about the crime and the mistreatments in the U.S.
Your parents or maybe even you were born in Asia.
Yeah, and it also just made sense because it's your country of origin or you had roots in that country. But now there's a lot of guys who are moving to different countries, like a lot of Latin American countries, and they don't have roots from there. Right. They're not Latin American, but they're moving there because they feel like there's for a number of reasons, and we're going to get into it. But anyways, they're moving there for love.
Yeah, I believe that
life.
Latin America, Southeast Asia, and Eastern Europe are the top 3 destinations, but it could be anywhere else in the world.
Right. So I want to real quickly talk about the 3 different styles because we've heard about this concept for a while, and we even know some people who have taken trips or moved across the seas or whatever it is.
Yeah, and I think that this is, by the way, I want to say this is specifically a 2023 version of this. Bruce Lee was in the 1970s was already going back and forth between the East and the West, so we're not referring to just like being a fob traveling back and forth. Yeah. We're talking about men, Andrew, that are looking for true love and appreciation after exhausting themselves in the American market. Number 2, maybe men seeking women with more traditional values. You know, different countries and different societies, there are different levels of economic development, societal development, capitalism, late stages, early stages, mid stages, late stages. People, number 3, Andrew, there are men that are just seeking fun and hookups and I guess like a party type of lifestyle.
Yeah, and this would be more of the frowned upon style of being a passport bro, or as some people on the internet call a sex pat. But basically, like, yeah, this is like the one that has the bad connotation. The other ones are more built in with a little bit more like true intentions of being like, hey man, you know, I don't like my dating options in America, and there's a lower cost of living over there. I can live a nice life, and I can find true love.
But Andrew, why would anybody leave the tier S1 country, America, the country that everybody wants a visa to get PR or green cards in to come to America? Why would anybody leave this S-tier country to non-S-tier countries? That doesn't make any sense.
Okay, so a lot of the criticism is right off the bat. Okay, and not all women are saying this, but there's obviously a lot of women who are criticizing these guys.
The contentious nature of the internet.
Being like, yeah, of course. It's not really a man versus woman thing, but yeah. Anyways, that's how it seems like. Anyways, they're like, oh, you guys are losers. You guys can't pull in America. You guys don't have, you guys are not considered very attractive. You don't have good jobs. Right. And that's why you don't have as many dating options as you would like in America. So you have to go over to a easier market, you know, or you have to go meet women who more value what you can bring to the table as a man financially and things like that.
I will say it's kind of interesting to see women, and usually guys used to say this to other guys growing up, women to look at a guy and go, you get no women's. That's why you got to go, you L.
But I guess for this video, David, I don't want to talk about like, there's always like been, you know, people who just can't get any love in America who go overseas. Dude, but what about the people?
Pop stars have been doing it forever. Like if you were an Asian pop star, you had to go back to Asia because you weren't going to get no love in the American pop industry. But obviously that was not on a micro level. That was an industry thing.
But I want to talk about men who seem like solid men in America. Men who you look at and you meet and be like, yeah, you could live a good life in America.
Or maybe they've even been married or had multiple relationships in America, but they're still choosing to seek things abroad, right?
Yes. Now we have some friends that I know, some guys who have relationships with women
Dude, are you saying
abroad.
you're friends with passport bros?
No. No, I do know some Chinese dudes who married Russian women or Kazakhstan or whatever, Latin America.
right.
But I guess what I'm saying is like, these are normal guys. These are not like
they have
guys.
good jobs.
Yeah.
Correct.
And they're not like bad looking or anything like that, but they just are looking for something else overseas. So I think that's what I want to pick apart. We got to talk about that.
Well,
Yep,
what are
please
the
do.
reasons that you're hearing on the internet? But obviously, there has to be some potential credence to these because it's such a large movement.
Yeah, and it's such a large movement. That's why we have to delve into this, guys. It's not just like 10 guys did this. Like 10,000, like a lot of guys are talking about this. So,
That's quite a bit more than that.
The reasons range. They're ranging from, they feel like American women are spoiled by the top 20% of men. We'll get into that later. They're sick of the direction that America's going in economically. They seek women with more traditional values, feeling like Americanized women don't hold those traditional values of the past, maybe like, 30 years ago. They feel like they will get a bump in an overseas market and that maybe women over there are not as judgmental of their looks or status.
Or maybe they just have a different look standard that they might fit in.
I mean, most other countries, the look isn't a standard. It's the provision that is the most, like, this is why parents chose for their daughters before, because their daughters would choose someone that she's head over heels for, but can't provide for her. And this is why parents chose providers.
Into better of that standard.
Yeah, maybe they find women overseas in certain countries more attractive, period. The cost of living is lower in a lot of these countries.
I personally do like Asians more than most other races, just because.
So your money can stretch. Maybe you're a work from home guy. You have a bunch of money saved up.
You work on the computer. You trade stocks.
You don't have to pay New York rent. You don't have to pay New York, SF, LA, Seattle rent. Also, maybe they have some baggage from back home. They want to start new. They're a divorcee, whatever. And maybe they just want to be in a different environment. They feel like they can add to the local culture or whatever,
Yeah. And I think, dude, one thing that I want to say is like a lot of people have been doing this for a long time, not just guys looking for love. Like there's a bunch of Americans and even like married couples moving to Mexico City, Tulum, Lisbon, Portugal right now. Like a lot of people, think about it. Every time there's a new president, everybody always threatens to move to Canada. But obviously, I guess the connotation is different when it's guys. And potentially some of them are going to start media channels dissing the women in their old country. Yeah, right? That's the issue.
And here's the thing. Are people just becoming immigrants again? In a way, but usually when you immigrate to America, you're coming from a place that is considered a country that is not as strong, right?
System-wise, right?
Right, or economically
or
not as strong. That's why you're going to the stronger country for better opportunities. Now, it's funny, America's still the strongest country, but you're leaving America to go to a country that is economically not as strong, but for better life opportunities.
Yeah,
so that's why it's different.
At the end of the day, for me, this just boils down to international arbitrage. And for me, I don't really view it as any different when you apply it to just like the metric that they're looking for to increase is love.
Correct.
To me, it's not any different.
He's right. The arbitrage of where people are looking for is going to balance out this way, because there's not enough viable candidates in where these men are. So they're going to have to travel to be able to find exactly what he's asking for. Love / a relationship that they can build with.
People, they move for economics. Some people move for religious persecution, freedoms. You know what I mean? Like different people value different things in their life, right?
Right. So you're saying now love is just moving up the list of reasons why people are moving for that reason.
I wouldn't say exactly
I guess if you're
love,
in America, theoretically, one way you could look at it is that you're in
love.
an S1 tier late stage capitalism economy. What do you have now but those last stages of Maslow's hierarchy of needs of actualization and stuff like that? Plus, obviously, this whole thing has existed since the 1950s, 60s, Andrew. What about like foreign soldiers that were stationed in like international American military base?
A lot of Vietnam vets married Vietnamese women, Thai women, because they were stationed out there and they actually hated the war and sided with foreigners in a sense, and they stayed there.
But yeah, anyways. All right, so here's the controversial part, David. This has become a man versus woman thing, where the women on the internet, not all women, just the women on the internet leaving comments
all
like,
women,
oh, you guys are losers, you guys can't make it in
correct.
America. And then the men are clapping back and be like, well, women in America, they're lacking traditional values. They all just want to do OnlyFans and do this, and they're getting spoiled on these trips and stuff. And you guys just want, you guys make too much money, you don't need men.
I think, different specific people could have different arguments, but what you just listed off were like,
I think one of the biggest one is that I don't need no man and I'm strong and independent. Just that mindset alone makes it so that men do not want to deal with these women. Why would we want to deal with someone that doesn't even care for us?
like probably the two ones you see the most.
Yeah, those are the most fiery arguments.
I would say this. Part of it aren't they both right to some extent for some members of the other group, but not all members of the other group? Like some of the passport bros are definitely going to be problematic, just like any humans that move anywhere.
I love these guys. It is not a color or a sex thing. It is just a bad person thing. There's just bad actors in the world. Doesn't matter what sex or creed or color they are. They're bad actors.
For higher leverage or greener pastures, they're not all like great people. There's a distribution, right? Some
sure.
people are middle tier
yeah.
people, average people. Some people are really good people. Some people are bad people. So I guess that would be my thing to say the variance part in terms of like, yeah, there are bad passport bros for sure.
Yes, there are.
Oh, yeah,
and then
for
maybe,
sure.
I guess on the women's side, I guess, is that just a perception of society, or would you agree that there is certainly a rift between men and women right now in American society because possibly the issues have shifted so quickly?
Yeah, I mean, we talk about this on our channel, how the world has shifted very quickly, especially like, for example, for a lot of like white people or white males in America, they feel like the world changed very quick on them.
Yeah, they feel like the political narrative is against them right now.
You know, as a minority man, I already knew like this is not the country that fully sees me as fully equal in this country. I guess so. I guess my expectations are a little bit different, but yes, I can see that things change quickly. So maybe if you're a guy who you're looking and you wanted women to kind of act like, you know, how maybe your mom did back like 30 years ago, 40 years
You're talking
ago.
about with the 1960s values.
Yeah,
right?
1970s values even. Yeah, I could see that things are missing from that, right? From what
And
you're
then
used
there's
to.
a whole debate about, do men inherently in their genetics more go with the old ways or the new ways? I don't know, man. I mean, these discussions, there's like literally entire YouTube channels that drop videos every day about this topic.
And here's another one. It's like
that's us.
another point here is like there's leftover men and women on either side.
Are you referring to the Shengnu?
Yeah. In China, I think this is like really where the term actually comes from. But however, there's like leftover men and women in America, but those leftover people don't want to date each other. So what I mean by leftover is,
this is true.
I'm saying like, for example, there's a decent looking woman who worked very hard in her career. She moved up, she dated a little bit and stuff like that, but she's like maybe 35 years old. She's getting a little bit older, old enough where now she has to make that decision if she's going to start a family at this point, right? And maybe she doesn't. So she just has pets and dogs and dates and whatever, right? But she's maybe not going to start a family at this point. So I guess some people would label her as like a leftover woman, like a little too old to start a family with.
Correct.
Right. Some people for sure in society, definitely not saying that you are if you do that, but that's just a more modern
That's the perception
It's a
of it.
more modern
Don't lie.
archetype in society that the proportion of
Leftovers.
people who fit that archetype has increased over time.
And then there's obviously the portion of guys who maybe, for whatever reason, maybe it's themselves or they're awkward or something. Or
They're
maybe
low value. They're
low
difficult to
value
get.
guys. I
They're
don't know.
difficult to deal with. They're unstable. They can't
Temperamental,
commit. Who knows?
stubborn guys, you know, not.
So you're saying the leftover people of both groups definitely are not going to link up.
They're
to
not matching up.
Well,
they
I guess from what I've seen, and I'll tell you this, I've seen people in both situations, and I've seen the person that's over 35 that's a single mother with like kids or two kids. Both of them have gone overseas. But you know what I notice is when the guys go overseas, potentially there's more of an intention of creating a family, whereas women are just like, well, I already got my kids back home. I'm just like going overseas for fun.
Yeah. And here's the thing. So because more men are leaving to be passport bros, and there's way more passport bros than passport girls, so that means there technically should be an imbalance because if men and women are 50-50 in society as far as population wise, then more men are leaving, then where does it leave?
It's not just that. More men are leaving. More men are incarcerated. And more men don't even give a fuck. So the dating pool for women is actually really small nowadays. They wanted that top 20%. That's what they're going to get.
Like, I guess a certain portion of
Yeah,
women.
and I think it could vary even per community as well, right? Because
Now,
America's so diverse.
I don't know if the number of men leaving is actually significant enough to throw things off, but
It's significant enough because of the whole incarceration numbers. Like, if we actually look at the incarceration numbers and the men that are leaving the country, that's actually a good portion of men.
just know that this is a trend and it's probably going to continue.
Moving on, Andrew, a girl, this is an argument that's very on the pro-female side, by the way, not saying all females feel this way. Are the men just smurfing, but in real life? Smurfing, I guess, is a gaming term where somebody who's like, let's say, for example,
I never thought about this smurfing thing. I know the term, and it's just like to create a new account with the skills that you have now, but you look like a newbie. Or to start a life over with or starting a new game over with the same, or with your continued save stuff. I guess that's kind of it, huh? To smurf into another country to start over, but you have all your assets from your old country. I don't hate on the term.
ranked 82 player out of 100 level goes and plays with like the people who are ranked 25 so they could be like a top tier, the best player in that class.
I guess in a sports term, it would be like people who are in the NBA now moving overseas to play in the CBA or EuroLeague or even
Dwight Howard in Taiwan,
the NBL, the Australian league. When they can't really compete at the NBA level or the American level anymore, they go overseas so that they can still
be an MVP, right?
Yeah, and pretty much dominate essentially.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it just goes back to the arbitrage thing, man. Different environments, like depending on what type of Pokemon you are and what stage of evolution in your Pokemon you are, there's just different environments that cater to different animals, land, sea.
They had to bring Pokemon in. I love Asian guys.
I think just a question, I guess, and if you're someone who feels strongly about this, I think a question I would ask is just like, a lot of these guys, not all of them, but a lot of these men doing this seem like rational men. I guess why would so many rational, decent men feel the need to move out of America to another country that is perhaps not as developed as America to live a better life?
That's because they just want to explore the patriarchy in a country where they're lower on the growth development curve, right?
Maybe.
That's theoretically.
No, seriously, maybe that's the reason. But I guess it's a little different for every guy, but maybe. You know what I'm saying? So I guess we got to ask this question. I guess
let us know what you think in the comment section below, because I'm sure, and by the way, try to keep it civil in the comment section, because I think for me, I always use this term, Andrew, and I actually think it came from the deal websites, YMMV. Your mileage may vary.
You mean slickdeals.net?
Yeah, slickdeals.net. It came from Coppin TVs with like 3 coupons. I think like your mileage may vary is so applicable nowadays because it's very difficult to make generalized assumptions about anybody because America's so diverse. The desires are so diverse. The fundamental cards that somebody is playing with or dealt or perceived to have are so diverse. YMMV.
They still want very similar things.
You're saying even if you are a guy and you move overseas to, let's just say, Latin America, and you have all these expectations about the women there and the traditionalness and the life that you're going to have, it might not be like what your friend got or the guy that's on YouTube got, right?
He is correct.
Yeah, I think that they're for sure, I mean, they have like an established culture and a system that they run over there, but where you're going to fit into that in a micro sense is very different, right?
Correct.
Yeah,
correct.
that's like we both got traded from the Brooklyn Nets, but like, Marcus Morris getting treated different than KD. I don't know, or the TJ Warren.
My overall guys, I don't know these references. For me is just that, there's nothing wrong with guys doing this because they're not hurting anybody. As long as they're not hurting people when they go over to the other country and they're not messing around, right? If they're treating everybody with respect, technically, there's nothing wrong because you're just exercising your freedoms. You're using your American passport to go to any different country, right? And feel love and feel appreciated if that's the reason why, right? Mm-hmm. But I think that part of the issue is when you dump on like women in America or American culture, then obviously those people are going to feel very offended. Now, I don't know what your point is. If your goal is to change the culture in America and try to push back on it because you don't like how it's changing or not. Or
I would imagine that it's not to change it because they feel like they're just escaping a game map that they don't like how it's changed for them.
Maybe they think they're escaping a sinking ship.
Yeah, that's true. Who knows, man? Let's get...
they're right. A lot of men feel like this is a sinking ship. The United States, dating, freaking California, the laws that they've been passing lately. Fuck, I don't even want to stay here. I definitely don't want to stay here. So, yeah, going to another country is definitely going to be a lot better for me.
Real quick, Andrew, I want to get into some common arguments about the details of being a passport bro real quick. By the way, not endorsing this, by the way. Andrew, do you think if you go overseas to a country that's not as high status as America, you might be just used for your status?
That's possible, for sure.
Yeah.
You also get used for your status here in the U.S.
Yeah, it's possible, but I don't think it's for sure either.
Yeah,
because
I mean,
I think that perceived higher status could play into attraction as well.
Dude, I mean, at the end of the day, people get married for all different types of reasons. And some of the reason is like, hey, you provide a better life for this person in America or in that country.
Would you agree that marriages outside of America, for the most part, are more like taking the math into equation rather than just like...
We're Asians, you know. It all comes back to math for us. He's correct. When you balance out the numbers in other countries, you come out way more positive than you would here.
Romantic lust and stuff. It's like more mathematical. The algorithms tend to be more practical overseas.
Correct.
I believe that.
I've heard it
I love that term. I'm going to use that. The algorithm overseas is just so much better.
be called that a little bit more traditional and possibly, and not in a negative way, transactional. But anyways,
what do you think about traditional gender roles? Is it true that these guys, passport bros, are going to find more traditional gender roles overseas?
Not guaranteed,
probably,
but that's what they're looking for.
I can't say for every country and every woman, right? But yeah, I guess there is probably more.
That seems like that would be
That's
an
more of the
overarching
status quo.
trend. Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody says, but aren't overseas women wanting to be modernized in a sense of like mimicking whatever the other people don't like about America? Like, for example, there's these traits about America, whether they're viewed as good or bad, that won't they just eventually get there anyway? Like, won't these other countries eventually strive for that?
Yeah.
And I actually disagree with that because if you look at Japan is also economically highly developed, and they have very different cultural norms there.
Correct.
So it's not like, I don't fully believe in that, like, oh yeah, just once everybody makes $50,000 a year in a country, they all just become like America.
Well, I think it is important to note that oftentimes, I would say passport bros, they're not always going to the biggest, most international city, because any international city in any like decent sized country is probably going to have, at least in that city, have more
globalized
similar
culture, right?
globalized culture, which is going to be more based off of American culture.
Right, because American culture is so dominant globally. And then
100%
somebody
agree with
said,
that one.
but doesn't it matter who you are a lot? Like, won't they only want white guys over there? That's what I read.
I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of YouTube channels of Asian guys and Indian dudes and all types of people that are like black guys that are going overseas. So I'm sure
it could
that
change. I probably could shift depending on what country you're into.
yeah, I'm sure depending on the country and the person you meet, and I guess how good looking of a person you are and how much you have to provide for them is probably maybe even the biggest factor. But
YMMV.
yeah.
That's what I think.
It's not all the
man.
same, guys. Anyways, guys, let us know in the comments down below. Have you heard of this term, or have you heard of this kind of action of like, and it's particularly men seeking love overseas, right? By the way, women don't do this quite as often. And so I guess like, let us know what you think about this whole thing and what you think about the branding Passport Pro. Is it getting out of hand? Are guys just giving up too early in America? Are they too weak?
Or is the game hopeless and stacked against you?
That's the whole problem. The game is hopelessly stacked against us. That was some good chow. I love giving different takes from different people, and the Fung Bros, different take than what I usually do. Their take is very similar to me. Makes sense because we're both Asian. But, I do cover a lot of black and a lot of white people talking about Passport Bros. And Asians just see it a little bit differently because we're a little bit number oriented and we're used to some of these cultural things already. And they're right. The last statement is it because, men are weak? Somewhat. Or is it because the game is rigged against us? That's mostly the reason. I do videos, like a lot of the older gentlemen, they're doing these videos like me. I'm 36, going on 37. I know a lot of gentlemen in their 40s. They do these videos not for themselves or people in their age range. They're doing it for the 20-year-olds. We do this for the younger people. Like, if you've already dated you know, like, or you haven't dated and you really want to explore things and you really want to settle down, you might just be considered a passport bro, or you want to consider a passport bro than actually trying to build here. So please like and subscribe down below. I'd really appreciate that, and I'll catch you guys next time. It's Chow Time.